Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this particular video, I will be doing an in-depth comparison or analysis, if you wish, between the state known as Nirvana and heaven. Within the state, that which is spoken within the Sanskrit, which in the ultimate state within enlightenment, one may reach what is known as nirvana, where you could say the fires of greed, ego, and desire are extinguished forever. In this very state, which is of an unconditioned and peaceful state, you might say it is a detached way of life. In order to reach nirvana, the literal definition of nirvana, the feeling of the literal definition, means the moment a flame extinguishes, is blown out. Now I want you to picture this moment with me for a second and close your eyes as I talk you through this pictorial or pictorialization, this mental imaging. Imagine you're at your 4th birthday. And at that said 4th birthday, the cake is brought out, and it is you that must now be responsible for blowing out those candles, all 4 of them. But within those candles, the moment that you blow those candles, the memory will vanish. Now blow those candles out and come back here. Now, notice I took you to a happy moment in order for you to achieve a state similar to a very mild exponentially developable practice, which is the reaching of nirvana. The reason I took you to a happy memory in order to create this detachment is specifically for the reason that in this particular practice, you might find it is easier to detach from the surrounding universe in order to inwardly enter into the detachment of self. You might imagine nirvana be as simply a practice of mindfulness. It's not that you're no longer attached to the external world. You are no longer attached to the internal world the same. It's not that just physical things will no longer bother you. Internal things will no longer bother you either. Imagine your emotions, your thoughts, your imaginations, your delusions, all of these particular things that very much are a key factor to our human existence. And the moment you can reach nirvana, you might say it is the moment you are no longer attached, not just physically, emotionally, thoughtfully, or have any other attachment but to yourself. and to yourself, who is living said life? It is you. And so to yourself, rid yourself of all your attachments, except of yourself. Are you able to rid yourself of all your pre-existing predicaments, your patterns, your words, your actions, your thoughts, your behavior, all of these other factors that ultimately lead to you being exactly who you are at this very exact moment? Do you feel at this present time you don't necessarily have a worry or a care in the world for anything else except the now? Now let's take that further. Imagine now you have just achieved nirvana, hypothetically, in a very mild but exponential developable skill that you may now practice to develop, to arise, to achieve nirvana, if you may achieve it even once in your life. But now let's take the step deeper. Let's imagine entering heaven now, which even in the practice of nirvana in itself is a similar, comparable state as heaven. However, nirvana may be achieved prior to dying, and it may also be achieved beyond dying, which ultimately the two have a very different karmic flow in how they proceed. If you were to achieve nirvana before dying, you would essentially rid yourself of anything that would ever fulfill or hold you combined or confined, anything that would hold you confined to anything that is lesser than yourself. Whereas now beyond death, if you were to experience nirvana, you may not necessarily experience a rebirth. The karmic flow known as the samsara ceases to exist. Now let's keep in mind now that nirvana, the feeling of the definition, is the moment a flame is blown out, you could say. Blown out. No more attachment of the flame to said spindle, which has been blown out by said breath. But notice the three aspects in this particular notion. You have the flame, you have the spindle, and ultimately you end by blowing out the flame and spindle. If the attachment can be metaphorized to the flame and the spindle, which the attachment of the self, you could say, in yourself, you could say the attachment is the flame and you are the spindle. Your body is the spindle and the flame is your mind. Now blow those out. erase the attachment, do you see all of a sudden there is now nothing there? The moment you achieve this said nothingness, you have achieved a nirvana, where there is nothing that can ever alter your authentic self beyond this point. And it is up to you to hold on to that feeling. But even in holding on, you find the attachment and letting go. Nirvana is not a complete state that lasts an entire lifetime. Because even the masters that have achieved nirvana in their lives, they themselves know that if you seek to attach yourself to nirvana, even by seeking to attach yourself to this nothingness, even in seeking to attach yourself, arises the problem. Nirvana comes and goes. It is a cyclical pattern, which as a cyclical pattern passes, you cannot simply try to hold on to it and attach yourself to said moment. If not, you wouldn't be, and you would not be, a born self, a rebirthed self. In seeking to claim attachments, such as proclaiming, I am holy, I am so and so. These are all acquirements of the ego to specifically state you are greater than others, an attachment, which even in the young selves that have possibly achieved a brief moment of nirvana, even in your young selves, you may have grasped a concept that for some has taken thousands of years to get to, whereas you were able to achieve that same state in 5 minutes. And you might think to yourself, well, that must mean that I am greater. Once again, seeking to reattach an ego self to a desire to be greater, a feeling. The moment we attach our emotions, our thoughts, into physical characteristics, you might find now, I could say, this is a guitar. Or I could say, this is a guitar and it belongs to me. Seeking to attach myself to something. The more I proclaim things belong to me, the more and more and more and more and more and more I technically own. Which nirvana is essentially the opposing force of Western civilization. When looking at materialistic ways, which is the prized possession of the westernized civilized world, a practice such as a nirvana practice to achieve, you could say, perfect enlightenment. Where might that be problematic in this culture of the Western civilized world? Well, in Western civilized world, everything belongs to somebody, including you. And ultimately, whether it be in Hinduistic practices or Christian or Catholic practices, where we now find entering heaven, ridding the self, letting go of everything you may have ever attached yourself to, and letting go of it to enter the light. Letting go of anything you may have ever acquired in your life. You are born with nothing when you enter the world, and you die with nothing when you leave the world. Ultimately, the idea of entering heaven is a similar practice to Nirvana, which two not at all connected religions themselves have developed in their own explanations, you could say, similar experiences. And now you might find that in every single culture in the world, whether they were in direct or not contact from any other civilization, you might find the notion that behind every single culture is the notion of a creator. Said creator, no matter how far apart or how close together, every single culture of man on earth, whether it be thousands of years ago or to this present day, every single culture of man has the notion of a creator. Now, in order to prove the existence of a creator, what would be the perfect thing for the creator to speak at this very moment? Which is why I will invite a biblical reading at this particular time. In this particular biblical reading, all I'm going to do is simply flip through my pages. And I have arrived at